It's a quick question, Nicola. I noticed in the internet that a lot of licences have been issued for fracking, and there's a fair amount in the central belt of Scotland. What would happen to the companies that have been granted these licences in the event of an independent Scotland?
Les Brown from Muirhill. It's regarding European immigration. We just have control over it. As we've got immigrants coming in just now, and they've not got any jobs, but they're claiming benefits more or less straight away, and sending money back home, and nothing's been contributed. Also, what would you do? How would you treat the influx into schools, prisons, hospitals, etc., stuff like that? Can you just combat that?
My question was much similar to the gentleman behind me. It was just to say, are you going, if we vote yes, will you cut down when the immigrants come into the country as there's not enough work for our own people? Thank you.
Nicola, I'm Diane. What did you think about the cuts that everybody's been getting, the people, the cuts, like the benefits, and people that's get many different, they've had their money cut and different things, and from health things and all that. What do you think of the cuts that people have suffered, and they've been suffering really ill with all the cuts that's been going on now?
Okay, can you pass the microphone just to the lady too along from?
Sorry, mine was a really quick question. Kashmir Morris from Motherwell. When we do vote yes, how do you envisage Scotland's relationship with the wider world, given everything that's going on just now, Syria, Palestine, things like that?
Okay, right, let me just run through these as quickly as I can, boss. Fracking. There's a big question around fracking. I don't want to get too deeply into the kind of detail of the fracking debate. I know it's something that people are very interested in, and lots of people have lots of concerns about it. Generally speaking, I'm not just talking about licensing here, licences or permissions that have been granted before independence will be honoured after independence. That's how these things operate legally, and how it should operate in Scotland. In terms of fracking, though, a company that wanted to frack in Scotland would also have to go through the planning process in Scotland. So just having a licence doesn't mean you can actually start the process of fracking. And we have a robust planning process in Scotland. We think there needs to be very, very serious consideration given to any application to frack. There are obviously lots of concerns around fracking. So the key point there is yes, generally speaking, legal entitlements will be honoured, of course, in an independent Scotland, but the fracking position is slightly more complex than just getting a licence and being able to do it. The two questions about immigration. Obviously, you've got to make a distinction between European immigration and immigration from outside the European Union. We have, within the European Union, freedom of travel, and that applies to us as much as it does to others. So people from Scotland can go and live in any other European country if they so choose. So that won't change if we're independent and remain as we will within the European Union. For people coming outside of the European Union, Scotland would require, as all countries do, a managed and controlled immigration system. The benefit of being independent is that we get to take the decisions about immigration, the right levels for our economy of immigration. We favour a system similar to Australia, where you've got a kind of green card points based system where we are encouraging people to come here in order to do jobs that our economy requires to be done. So it's important to distinguish between the two groups. Just to make a A couple of general points about immigration though, and it's not, I understand the concerns that are being raised. I mean, I represent a constituency in Glasgow that has, I was going to say probably, definitely got the highest level of immigration from Eastern European countries of any part of Scotland. I represent the south side of Glasgow. Overall, immigrants to this country contribute more than they take out in benefits. Now that's something that, let me finish and then I'll let you come back in, but most immigrants, not all, and I'll come on to the exceptions in a minute, but most immigrants come here to work, and they do work, and they pay taxes, and they contribute to our economy. Now, as you say, not that doesn't apply to all, just as it doesn't apply to all of the indigenous Scottish population. We don't all work, and some who don't work could be working, and I take a simple view that nobody should be able to sit back and claim benefits when they're capable and fit and able to work. And that applies to people who come into the country just as it applies to people here. And that's why we need a system that encourages, supports and gets people into work. But let's not, get ourselves into the position of thinking that immigrants are this one-way drain on our society, because it's not true and the evidence doesn't bear it out. The second point though is, and it goes back to my original point, we need to decide for ourselves what the correct level of immigration is going forward, and that will change, depending on changes in circumstances over time. Similar to the answer I gave to the gentleman here, we've got a big challenge in Scotland to grow our working age population. We need to get more people in Scotland working in order to be paying taxes that then allow us to support the fact that more people, and it's a good thing, are living longer. Now, that doesn't all come from immigration, incidentally. We need to, as you rightly say, get more opportunities to stop our own young people having to leave to get work, enable them to stay here and contribute. We need to get more people through better childcare, I've already spoken about that, more women able to contribute to the workforce. But yes, we will need to have a degree of immigration as well. Even if you take population growth in Scotland up to what's called the higher estimate, our population growth is still going to be lower than population growth across the rest of the UK. So we just need sensible discussions and sensible decisions about what's right for our economy. And all of these things should be driven by what's right for us, what's right for our economy, what's right for our society, and we should approach it in that way. I've got to be honest, and I speak as somebody, as I said, who represents a very large number of recent immigrants and second, third generation immigrants. I hate the language and the rhetoric that we hear in this country around immigration and immigrants. I think one of the... and I'm not suggesting you were indulging in that, sir, but I think we need to have a proper, sensible debate about what's right for our circumstances.
I have nothing against immigrants coming here because
I know, I didn't say you did. I didn't say you did.
The only point I was trying to make was, in Europe, European immigrants can come to this country and they can claim benefits more or less straight away if they contribute to.
There were issues, you're right. There were issues that I think were...
And also, they can send money back home to people that are not even here. They can claim for families back home. That I disagree with.
But I think you're right. I think you raise a point there. Can I say on the point about... No, and I'm...
And also, will it not be, with all immigrants coming, do we get enough resources, schools, houses? We've got people waiting housing lists just now, but immigrants seem to come in and they get houses right away.
There's a lot of mythology around immigration, and that's not true. And I speak with some... Okay, let me just try and round this off by... I know there's a lot of some of what's said is correct, but there's a lot of mythology, and I speak with a wee bit of knowledge because of my constituency experience here. There were issues when some of the new countries joined Europe and the UK didn't have restrictions the way some other European countries did, and I think there is an acceptance on the part of the Westminster government, the previous Westminster government, that they got that wrong. The issue about, it's often talked about in the context of child benefit. Immigrants can come here and have child benefit even if their children are not here. That applies in both directions. It's not just something that can happen here. It's about the European rules. Now, I'm not saying all of those are perfect and shouldn't change. There's a huge amount of debate and discussion about what are the right rules to have in place around that, and we should be part of that. Going back to the question, I think the lady that asked the question is gone now, but it's about our ability as an independent country to be in Europe arguing for the kind of rules that we think should be in place. All I'm saying, and I know you're not disagreeing, all I'm saying is we should have that debate without the negative, horrible language and rhetoric around immigration. We should have it based on what's right for Scotland, and being independent gives us the ability. Look, I'm going to move on to the other. I'm going to have to move on to the... I'm happy to discuss this further with you afterwards, but I've got another couple of questions I need to answer here. If you want to have a word with me afterwards, I'm happy to continue this. The last two questions were Diane's question about cuts to disability benefits. I loathe what the UK government's doing with the benefit system. I absolutely agree you have to have a benefit system that's sustainable and affordable. Nobody should get to live the life of Riley on benefits if they're fit to work. But the benefit bill has been cut on the backs of the poorest and disabled and vulnerable in our society, and is wrong. If we were independent, we wouldn't go ahead with some of the changes that are underway just now. We'd have a humane system of assessing people's disabilities rather than having the system we've got just now. We wouldn't have it done by private companies like ATOS, we'd have it done in-house in the public sector. Lastly, our relationship with the world, we'd have a friendly, constructive, positive relationship with the world. I think there's big advantages in having the ability to decide our own foreign policy. Now, I can't look into the future and decide what foreign policy will be on X, Y or Z 10, 15, 20 years from now, but I do believe, probably regardless of what parties, I think the Scottish governments, I don't think any Scottish government would have allowed us to go into an illegal war in Iraq. I believe that the Scottish government would stand up for peace and for justice in the world, and the Palestinian people really need justice. What's happening in Gaza just now? The people of Gaza need justice. We need an end to violence in the Middle East. That applies in both directions. But what is happening in Gaza in terms of the blockade and what is indiscriminate killing of children in Gaza, I think is wrong. We get the chance to speak with our own voice on the world stage. And I'll come full circle to a point I started with. We're a small country in global terms. But just because you're a small country doesn't mean, A, you can't be a very successful and prosperous country, and there are plenty of examples that prove that, and nor does it mean you can't have a big impact in the world if you speak up for peace, for justice, for decency in the world. And I hope and believe that's what an independent Scottish government is doing.
Thank you very much, Nicola. I'm afraid that is the very end of the opportunity for questions this evening. However, if you have had questions unanswered, if you contact us through the Yes Motherwell Militia Facebook, including the people that are watching live this evening, we'll endeavour to get the answers that you're looking for and ensure that everybody